He who cannot control himself cannot control others. Napoleon Bonaparte, they tell you to feel your feelings. They preach vulnerability, emotional expression, the supposed liberation of letting it all hang out. They say bottling things up is toxic. We say, they're selling you weakness disguised as strength. Emotional detachment isn't about suppressing your feelings, it's about mastering them. It's about choosing your response, not being a puppet dancing to the strings of your impulses. The world doesn't reward those who wear their hearts on their sleeves. It exploits them. It uses their emotional volatility as leverage. Strategic emotional detachment is your armor. It's the wall you build between yourself and the chaos, the shield you raise against manipulation. It's the clarity you gain when you silence the screaming voices in your head and listen to the cold, hard logic of the situation. Think of a general on a battlefield. Can he afford to be consumed by grief for every fallen soldier? Can he allow fear to paralyze him in the face of overwhelming odds? No. He must remain detached, calculating, focused on the objective. His personal feelings are irrelevant. The mission is paramount. Your life is your battlefield. Your goals are your objective. Don't let your emotions turn you into a casualty. Emotional detachment isn't about becoming a robot, devoid of empathy or compassion. It's about choosing when and how to express those emotions. It's about recognizing that uncontrolled emotional outbursts are a sign of weakness, a vulnerability that can be exploited. It's about understanding that true strength lies in the ability to observe your feelings without being consumed by them, to acknowledge their presence without allowing them to dictate your actions. They'll tell you it's unhealthy to distance yourself from your emotions. They'll warn you about the dangers of repression, but they won't tell you about the dangers of emotional incontinence, of flooding every situation with your unfiltered feelings. They won't tell you how easily you can be manipulated when your emotions are on full display, how quickly you can be broken when your vulnerabilities are laid bare. Strategic emotional detachment is not repression, it's control. It's the ability to choose your emotional state, to dial it up or down as needed, to use your emotions as tools rather than being used by them. Consider the surgeon in the operating room. He's dealing with life and death, with human bodies broken and bleeding. Can he afford to be overwhelmed by the gravity of the situation? Can he allow his personal feelings for the patient to cloud his judgment? No. He must remain detached, focused on the task at hand, executing each procedure with precision and skill. His emotions are irrelevant. The patient's survival is paramount. Your life is your operating room. Your challenges are your patients. Don't let your emotions kill them. Emotional detachment is a skill, a muscle that must be trained and strengthened through constant practice. It's not a personality trait, not a sign of coldness or indifference. It's a strategic advantage, a weapon in your arsenal, a tool that allows you to navigate the world with clarity, focus, and unwavering resolve. It's the difference between being a victim of your emotions and being the master of your destiny. So ignore the whispers of the emotionally weak. Disregard the platitudes of those who preach vulnerability as the ultimate virtue. Embrace the power of strategic emotional detachment. Build your mental fortress. Harden your resolve. Control your emotions, and you will control your life. The first step towards strategic emotional detachment is brutal self-awareness. You cannot control what you do not understand. You must dissect your emotional responses, identify your triggers, and analyze the patterns that govern your reactions. Ask yourself, what situations consistently provoke anger, fear, or sadness? What thoughts typically precede these emotions? What physical sensations accompany them? Keep a journal. Write down your feelings, your thoughts, and the events that triggered them. Look for recurring themes, for hidden assumptions, for the underlying beliefs that shape your emotional landscape. This process is not comfortable. It requires honesty, vulnerability, and a willingness to confront your own flaws and weaknesses. But it is essential. Only by understanding your emotional architecture can you begin to dismantle the parts that hinder you and reinforce the parts that empower you. Once you have a clear understanding of your emotional triggers, you can begin to practice emotional regulation. This is not about suppressing your emotions, but about managing them effectively. It's about recognizing an emotion as it arises, acknowledging its presence, and then choosing how to respond. Imagine you are in a high-stakes negotiation. The other party makes an unreasonable demand. Your immediate reaction is anger. Your heart rate increases, your face flushes, and you feel the urge to lash out. But instead of reacting impulsively, you take a deep breath. You acknowledge your anger, but you refuse to let it control you. You remind yourself of your goals, of the importance of maintaining a calm and rational demeanor. You choose to respond strategically, to counter the unreasonable demand with a well-reasoned argument. This is emotional regulation in action. It's the ability to pause, to reflect, and to choose your response rather than being dictated by your emotions. A powerful technique for emotional regulation is cognitive reappraisal. This involves changing the way you think about a situation in order to change the way you feel about it. For example, imagine you have been rejected for a job you really wanted. Your immediate reaction is disappointment and self-doubt. You start to question your abilities, to wonder if you are good enough. But instead of dwelling on these negative thoughts, you choose to reappraise the situation. You remind yourself that rejection is a common experience, that it doesn't define your worth as a person. You focus on the skills and experience you gain during the interview process. You view the rejection as an opportunity to learn and grow, to refine your skills, and to pursue other opportunities. This is cognitive reappraisal. It's the ability to change your perspective, to find meaning and purpose even in difficult situations. Another effective technique is mindfulness meditation. This involves paying attention to the present moment without judgment. You focus on your breath, on the sensations in your body, on the thoughts and emotions that arise in your mind. You observe these experiences without getting carried away by them. You simply acknowledge their presence and let them pass. Mindfulness meditation helps you to develop a greater awareness of your emotional state, to recognize your triggers, and to detach from your emotions. It also helps you to cultivate a sense of calm and equanimity, which can be invaluable in high-pressure situations. Even 5 minutes of daily practice can make a significant difference in your ability to manage your emotions. Emotional detachment does not mean becoming a robot. It does not mean suppressing your emotions or denying your humanity. It means developing the ability to choose your emotional state, to use your emotions strategically, and to prevent your emotions from controlling you. It's about becoming the master of your own mind, the architect of your own emotional landscape. It's about building a mental fortress that can withstand any storm. It is about directing your emotional energy, like a laser beam, to achieve your goals instead of scattering it like a flood. Consider the warrior preparing for battle. He acknowledges his fear, his anxiety, his doubts, but he does not allow these emotions to paralyze him. He channels them into focus, into determination, into a fierce resolve to protect his comrades and achieve victory. He detaches from the potential consequences of failure, from the fear of death, and focuses on the task at hand, executing his training, following his orders, and fighting with unwavering courage. This is the essence of strategic emotional detachment. It's the ability to face fear, to embrace uncertainty, and to act with unwavering resolve in the face of adversity. The benefits of strategic emotional detachment extend far beyond the battlefield. It can improve your relationships, enhance your performance at work, and increase your overall sense of well-being. When you are not controlled by your emotions, you can communicate more effectively, resolve conflicts more constructively, and build stronger relationships. You can make better decisions, take calculated risks, and achieve your goals more effectively. You can also experience a greater sense of inner peace and contentment, knowing that you are in control of your own destiny. This is the power of emotional mastery. It is the key to unlocking your full potential and living a life of purpose and fulfillment. Furthermore, understand that true empathy is strengthened, not weakened, by emotional detachment. When you are not swept away by the emotional tide of another person, you can offer genuine support and perspective. You can listen without judgment, understand without becoming entangled, and provide clear, rational advice. Consider a therapist. They must be empathetic to their patients, understand their pain, and connect with their experiences. However, they cannot become emotionally enmeshed with their patients. If they did, they would be unable to provide effective treatment. They would be overwhelmed by their patients' emotions, unable to maintain objectivity, and ultimately unable to help. Strategic emotional detachment allows you to be a better friend, a better partner, a better leader, and a better human being. Ultimately, strategic emotional detachment is not about suppressing your feelings. It is about understanding them, managing them, and using them to your advantage. It is about transforming your emotions from liabilities into assets. It is about building a mental fortress that can withstand any attack, a mind that is sharp, focused, and unwavering. It is about taking control of your emotional destiny and forging a path to success and fulfillment. It is about becoming the master of your own fate. Imagine you are a high-stakes negotiator, locked in a room with a ruthless CEO who is determined to grind you into dust. Your company's future, your employees' livelihoods, everything hangs in the balance. He knows this and he's using it against you. He spent weeks researching your weaknesses, your vulnerabilities, the pressure points that will make you crack. He starts by praising your company, buttering you up with false flattery, trying to lull you into a false sense of security. Then, the hammer drops. He presents a deal so lopsided, so exploitative that it's an insult. He watches your face, searching for a flicker of anger, a hint of desperation, anything that he can use to his advantage. This is where emotional detachment becomes your shield. You recognize the manipulation for what it is, a calculated attempt to destabilize you, to make you react emotionally, to cloud your judgment. Instead of getting angry, instead of feeling the pressure building, you take a breath. You observe his tactics with clinical detachment, as if you were watching a chess game. You see his moves, anticipate his next steps, and plan your counter-strategy. You don't take his insults personally. They are simply data points, information to be processed. You focus on your objectives, on the long-term interests of your company, on the people who are counting on you. The CEO throws another curveball, questioning your competence, implying that you are out of your depth. He tries to provoke you, to make you lose your cool, but you remain calm, collected, unreadable. You respond with logic, with data, with unwavering confidence. You calmly dismantle his arguments, point by point, exposing the flaws in his reasoning. You turn his attacks back on him, using his own words against him. As the negotiation drags on, the tension in the room thickens. The CEO becomes increasingly frustrated, his tactics becoming more aggressive, more desperate. But you remain unfazed, your emotional detachment acting as an impenetrable barrier. You are not swayed by his threats, not intimidated by his power, not seduced by his false promises. You are in control because you are in control of your emotions. You know that the moment you lose your composure, the moment you let your emotions dictate your actions, you have lost the game. So you stay focused, stay calm, stay detached. Finally, after hours of intense negotiation, the CEO realizes that he can't break you. He sees that you are not going to budge, that you are willing to walk away from the table if necessary. He begins to soften his stance, to make concessions. You continue to negotiate with the same detached precision, extracting every possible advantage for your company. In the end, you walk out of that room with a deal that is not only fair but advantageous. You have protected your company, your employees, and your own reputation. You have won, not because you are smarter or more powerful than the CEO, but because you mastered your emotions. Now consider another scenario. A close family member is constantly critical, manipulative, and emotionally draining. Every conversation leaves you feeling depleted, frustrated, and resentful. You try to reason with them, to explain how their behavior affects you, but they either dismiss your concerns or turn the blame back on you. They might weaponize guilt, deploying manipulative tactics to make you feel responsible for their happiness and well-being. You find yourself walking on eggshells, constantly trying to avoid triggering their anger or disappointment. This situation can feel like a psychological prison, trapping you in a cycle of negativity and emotional exhaustion. Strategic emotional detachment offers a pathway to freedom. It doesn't mean that you stop caring about your family member, but it does mean that you learn to disengage from their emotional manipulation. You recognize their patterns of behavior, the tactics they use to control you, and you refuse to play along. You set boundaries, both physical and emotional, limiting your exposure to their negativity. You learn to say no, even when it feels difficult, protecting your own emotional well-being. When they try to provoke you, to guilt-trip you, to draw you into an argument, you don't react emotionally. You acknowledge their feelings, but you don't take responsibility for them. You understand that their behavior is a reflection of their own issues, not a reflection of your worth. You detach from their need for drama, from their attempts to control you, from their constant negativity. You focus on your own life, on your own goals, on your own happiness. You surround yourself with supportive, positive people who uplift you and encourage you. You create emotional space for yourself, allowing yourself to heal and recharge. Over time, your family member may notice that their tactics are no longer working. They may try to escalate their behavior to push your boundaries even further, but you remain steadfast, your emotional detachment acting as an impenetrable shield. You are no longer controlled by their emotions, no longer manipulated by their words, no longer trapped in their psychological prison. You are free. You understand that you cannot change them, but you can change how you react to them. You can choose to protect your own emotional well-being, to live your life on your own terms, to break free from the cycle of negativity. Strategic emotional detachment allows you to maintain a relationship with your family member, if you choose to, but on your own terms. It allows you to love them without being consumed by their negativity, to support them without sacrificing your own well-being, to be a source of strength and stability in their lives, without becoming entangled in their drama. Consider the world of professional poker. The best players are not necessarily the luckiest, but those who can master their emotions and read their opponents. Imagine a high-stakes game, millions of dollars on the line. A player bluffs a massive bet, pushing all their chips into the center of the table. The other player, stares at the board, analyzing the situation. Your heart races, your palms sweat, but you maintain a calm exterior. You force yourself to detach from the immediate pressure, to ignore the potential for huge gains or devastating losses. You focus solely on the data, the players' betting patterns, their body language, the cards on the table. You recall previous hands, looking for tells, for subtle cues that might reveal the truth. You weigh the odds, calculate the probabilities, assess the risks. You analyze their gaze, their posture, the subtle twitch of a muscle in their face. Is it a sign of nervousness, of a bluff about to be called? Or is it a calculated attempt to deceive you, to lure you into a trap? Your mind becomes a machine, processing information with cold, clinical precision. You block out the noise, the distractions, the emotional pull of the moment. You are not driven by greed, by fear, or by ego. You are driven by logic, by strategy, by the pursuit of the optimal decision. After minutes of intense deliberation, you make your decision. You calmly call the bet, pushing your own chips into the pot. Your opponent's face drops. They know that they have been caught, that their bluff has been exposed. They reluctantly show their hand, revealing a weak pair. You turn over your own cards, revealing a stronger hand. You win the pot, taking millions of dollars from your opponent. But you don't celebrate, you don't gloat, you don't let your emotions get the better of you. You simply collect your winnings, shuffle the cards, and prepare for the next hand. You understand that poker, like life, is a game of strategy, of risk management, of emotional control. The players who can master their emotions, who can detach from the immediate pressures and focus on the long-term goals, are the ones who will ultimately succeed. Strategic emotional detachment allows you to make rational decisions under pressure, to see through deception, to exploit your opponent's weaknesses, and to maximize your own chances of success. It allows you to play the game with a clear mind, a steady hand, and an unwavering focus. But this level of control, this calculated indifference, is not easily achieved. The untrained mind is a battlefield of shifting emotions, a chaotic landscape where impulses and desires clash without discipline. Imagine yourself in the same high-stakes poker game, but this time, you are unprepared. You have not cultivated the ability to detach, to analyze coldly. You are driven by the thrill of the gamble, the rush of adrenaline that surges through your veins with each raise and call. Your heart pounds in your chest, your palms sweat, and your thoughts race. You see your opponent's stack of chips, the potential wealth that could be yours, and your greed begins to cloud your judgment. They make a large bet, pushing a significant portion of their chips into the center of the table. Your initial instinct is to fold, to protect what you have. But then, doubt creeps in. What if they are bluffing? What if you are missing out on a huge opportunity? You analyze their body language, searching for any tell, any sign of weakness. But your emotional state distorts your perception, making you see what you want to see. You convince yourself that they are bluffing, that their confidence is a facade. You ignore the warning signs, the subtle cues that indicate their strength. Driven by greed and a false sense of confidence, you make the call. You push your own chips into the pot, committing yourself to the hand. Your opponent smiles, a genuine, confident smile. They turn over their cards, revealing a monster hand. Your heart sinks. You realize that you have been played, that your emotions have been manipulated. You have fallen into their trap, blinded by your own desires. You lose the pot, watching as your chips are swept away. You are left with nothing but regret and a valuable lesson learned. This is the trap of emotional entanglement. It is the failure to recognize that emotions, while powerful, can also be crippling. They can cloud your judgment, distort your perception, and lead you into ruinous decisions. The weak fail because they allow their emotions to control them, to dictate their actions. They react instead of respond, driven by impulse rather than strategy. They are easily manipulated, their weaknesses exposed for their opponents to exploit. They crave validation, fear rejection, and are desperate for approval. These vulnerabilities make them predictable, their actions easily anticipated. A skilled opponent can use these weaknesses against them, leading them down a path of self-destruction. The weak are slaves to their emotions, unable to break free from their grip. They are prisoners of their own minds, trapped in a cycle of impulsive behavior and regret. They lack the discipline to cultivate emotional detachment, to rise above their immediate feelings and make rational decisions. They are destined to repeat their mistakes, forever falling victim to the trap of emotional entanglement. The ability to detach, to observe your emotions without being controlled by them, is a critical skill for success in any domain. It allows you to see the world with clarity, to make informed decisions, and to resist manipulation. But it requires constant vigilance, a relentless commitment to self-discipline and emotional mastery. It is a skill that must be honed through practice, through facing difficult situations and resisting the urge to react impulsively. Only then can you break free from the trap of emotional entanglement and unlock your full potential. The journey to emotional detachment is not easy. It is a constant battle against your own internal weaknesses, a struggle to overcome the ingrained patterns of your mind. There will be times when you fail, when your emotions overwhelm you and lead you astray. But it is in these moments of failure that you have the greatest opportunity to learn and grow. By analyzing your mistakes, by understanding the triggers that led to your emotional entanglement, you can develop strategies to prevent it from happening again. You can build mental armor, strengthening your resolve and reinforcing your commitment to self-mastery. The trap is always there, waiting to ensnare the unwary. But with awareness, discipline, and a relentless pursuit of emotional detachment, you can navigate it successfully and emerge stronger, more resilient, and more capable than ever before. Don't be the player who is swept away by the tide of their own feelings. Be the one who stands firm, grounded in reason and strategic thought, ready to weather any storm and emerge victorious. Strategic emotional detachment at its core is not about becoming a robot devoid of feeling. It's about strategically controlling when and how you allow your emotions to influence your actions. Think of it as a tool, a scalpel to be wielded with precision, not a sledgehammer to be swung blindly. The Machiavellian approach sees emotions as vulnerabilities, levers that others can use to manipulate you. If someone knows you are easily angered, they can provoke you into making mistakes. If they know you are deeply empathetic, they can exploit your compassion for their own gain. Therefore, the first step is recognizing your own emotional triggers. What situations, what words, what types of people tend to evoke strong emotional responses in you? Keep a journal, reflect on your interactions, and honestly assess your reactions. Don't sugarcoat it, don't make excuses. Brutal self-honesty is the foundation of this entire process. Once you've identified your triggers, the next step is to create distance between the stimulus and your response. This doesn't mean suppressing your feelings, which is ultimately unhealthy and unsustainable. It means creating a pause, a buffer zone, in which you can consciously analyze the situation before reacting. Imagine someone insults you publicly. Your immediate impulse might be to retaliate with anger, to defend your honor. But the emotionally detached strategist takes a breath. They observe the situation. They consider the motivations of the person insulting them. Is this a calculated attempt to provoke a reaction? Is it simply a display of ignorance? What is the best course of action to achieve their long-term goals? Perhaps the best response is no response at all. Perhaps a subtle, calculated counterattack is more effective. Or perhaps the situation is simply not worth engaging with. The point is, the emotional detachment provides the space for rational thought to prevail. It transforms you from a reactive pawn into a proactive player. Another crucial aspect of strategic emotional detachment is understanding the emotions of others, not to empathize with them, but to anticipate their actions. By recognizing the emotional state of your opponent, you can predict their behavior and exploit their vulnerabilities. If someone is driven by fear, you can use that fear to control them. If someone is driven by greed, you can offer them a tantalizing reward to lure them into a trap. This is not about being cruel or malicious. It's about understanding human nature and using that understanding to achieve your objectives. It's about seeing the world as it is, not as you wish it to be. Furthermore, emotional detachment allows you to make difficult decisions without being swayed by sentimentality. A leader who is emotionally attached to their subordinates might hesitate to make necessary sacrifices, even if those sacrifices are ultimately in the best interests of the group. A business owner who is emotionally attached to their company might be unwilling to make tough choices, such as laying off employees or selling off a division, even if it means the survival of the business. Emotional detachment doesn't mean being heartless. It means prioritizing the greater good, even when it requires making painful decisions. It means understanding that sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do is also the most ruthless. The practice of strategic emotional detachment also extends to your own personal life. Don't allow yourself to become overly invested in relationships that are detrimental to your well-being. Don't let your emotions cloud your judgment when making important decisions about your future. Remember, your emotions are valuable tools, but they are also potential liabilities. Learn to control them, to harness their power, and to prevent them from controlling you. Consider the long game. Immediate gratification fueled by emotion is often the enemy of long-term success. The ability to delay gratification, to endure discomfort, to resist temptation, all stem from a foundation of emotional detachment. You are making choices, not reacting. This is how you become a strategist, a master of your own destiny, and a force to be reckoned with in any arena. It is about cultivating a stillness within, a center of calm amidst the chaos of life. It is about recognizing that your emotions are temporary, fleeting, and ultimately subject to your will. It's about building an inner fortress that cannot be breached by the emotional storms of the outside world. Throughout history, the rise and fall of empire serves as a stark reminder of the power and the necessity of strategic emotional detachment. Consider the Roman Empire, a civilization that dominated the known world for centuries. Its success wasn't solely built on military might, but also on the cold, calculated decision-making of its leaders. Emperors, generals, and senators alike understood that sentimentality had no place in the arena of power. Decisions regarding territorial expansion, resource allocation, and even matters of life and death were made with a detached objectivity, prioritizing the long-term stability and growth of the empire above all else. This wasn't to say they were devoid of emotion, but rather, they possessed the ability to compartmentalize their feelings, to set them aside when faced with critical choices that impacted the entire empire. The survival of Rome often hinged on making choices that were unpopular, even brutal, but ultimately necessary for its continued prosperity. Tax increases, military conscription, and the suppression of rebellions were all examples of decisions that required a steely resolve and a willingness to act against immediate emotional impulses. The alternative, succumbing to public pressure or allowing personal feelings to cloud judgment, would have inevitably led to weakness and eventual collapse. Take, for instance, the Punic Wars, a series of conflicts that pitted Rome against Carthage, its formidable rival for dominance in the Mediterranean. The wars were marked by immense losses and devastating setbacks for both sides. In the aftermath of the Battle of Cannae, where Hannibal inflicted a crushing defeat on the Roman army, the temptation to sue for peace must have been immense. The emotional toll on the Roman people was staggering, with countless families grieving the loss of loved ones. However, the Roman Senate, displaying remarkable emotional detachment, refused to yield. They understood that conceding defeat would have meant the end of Rome as a major power. Instead, they doubled down on their efforts, raising new armies, implementing innovative strategies, and ultimately persevering to achieve victory. Their ability to remain resolute in the face of overwhelming adversity was a testament to their capacity for strategic emotional detachment. Contrast this with the later years of the Roman Empire, when internal corruption and political infighting began to erode its foundations. As emperors became more concerned with personal gain and popularity, their ability to make difficult but necessary decisions diminished. Emotional considerations, such as fear of public backlash or the desire for personal enrichment, often outweighed the long-term interests of the empire. This led to a series of flawed policies, economic instability, and ultimately, the empire's decline. The lesson here is clear. Emotional detachment is not merely a desirable trait for leaders. It is an essential ingredient for long-term success and survival. Moving beyond the example of the Roman Empire, the concept of strategic emotional detachment is also readily apparent in the history of warfare. Throughout the ages, successful military commanders have understood the importance of maintaining a clear and objective perspective, even amidst the chaos and carnage of battle. They must be able to assess the situation, identify the enemy's weaknesses, and formulate a plan of attack without being swayed by fear, anger, or grief. Emotional outbursts on the battlefield can lead to impulsive decisions, tactical errors, and ultimately defeat. A commander who allows his emotions to cloud his judgment is a liability to his troops and a danger to his cause. Consider the example of a siege. A besieged army is often faced with dwindling supplies, constant bombardment, and the ever-present threat of attack. The temptation to surrender, to end the suffering and hardship, can be overwhelming. However, a commander who possesses strategic emotional detachment will be able to resist this urge. He will recognize that surrender is not always the best option, and that even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds, there is still a chance of victory. He will focus on maintaining morale, conserving resources, and seeking opportunities to break the siege, all while remaining detached from the emotional turmoil that surrounds him. This ability to remain calm and focused under pressure is what separates effective commanders from those who crumble under the weight of responsibility. It's not about lacking empathy for the soldiers under their command, but rather about prioritizing their overall well-being and the success of the mission. Sentimental decisions made in the heat of battle can have devastating consequences, leading to unnecessary casualties and strategic failures. The leader must be able to make the difficult choices, to sacrifice short-term comfort for long-term gain, and to remain unwavering in his commitment to achieving the objective. Strategic emotional detachment is not about suppressing emotions altogether, but rather about controlling them, directing them, and using them to enhance one's decision-making abilities. It's about recognizing that emotions are powerful forces that can either help or hinder one's progress, depending on how they are managed. It's about cultivating a sense of inner resilience, a mental fortitude that allows one to withstand the emotional storms of life and emerge stronger on the other side. This principle extends far beyond the battlefield and the halls of power. It applies to any situation where rational decision-making is paramount, whether it's in business, personal relationships, or even everyday life. The ability to detach oneself from emotional impulses and make choices based on logic and reason is a valuable asset that can lead to greater success and fulfillment in all areas of life. Cultivating strategic emotional detachment requires conscious effort and practice. It involves developing self-awareness, understanding one's own emotional triggers, and learning to manage one's reactions to stressful situations. It also involves cultivating a sense of inner calm and objectivity, a state of mind that allows one to see things clearly and make rational decisions, even under pressure. This is a skill that can be learned and honed over time, and it is a skill that is well worth mastering. The rewards of strategic emotional detachment are significant: increased clarity, improved decision-making, and a greater sense of control over one's own life. Strategic emotional detachment isn't about becoming a robot devoid of feeling. It's about recognizing emotions as data points, not directives. Think of it like reading a weather report. You acknowledge the forecast of a storm, but you don't stand outside and let it batter you. You prepare, you adjust your plans, you navigate the situation with awareness and foresight. Similarly, understanding your emotional landscape allows you to anticipate your reactions, prepare for potential pitfalls, and navigate complex situations with a clear head. The psychology behind this involves recognizing the interplay between the amygdala, the brain's emotional center, and the prefrontal cortex, the seat of rational thought. When faced with a stressful situation, the amygdala can hijack the prefrontal cortex, leading to impulsive, emotionally driven decisions. Strategic emotional detachment is about strengthening the connection between these two areas, allowing the prefrontal cortex to maintain control even when the amygdala is firing. This requires a conscious effort to observe your emotions without judgment, to acknowledge their presence without letting them dictate your actions. It's about creating a space between stimulus and response, a moment of pause where you can assess the situation objectively and choose your reaction deliberately. This space is where true power lies. Consider the analogy of a chess master. They anticipate their opponent's moves, calculate the consequences of each action, and remain calm even under intense pressure. They don't allow their emotions to cloud their judgment or lead them to make rash decisions. They approach the game with a strategic mindset, focusing on the long-term goal rather than getting caught up in the heat of the moment. This requires a high degree of emotional detachment, the ability to see the board clearly and make rational decisions regardless of the stakes. The same principle applies to any situation where strategic thinking is required, whether it's negotiating a business deal, leading a team, or navigating a personal conflict. The ability to remain calm, objective, and focused is essential for success. This isn't about suppressing emotions, which can be detrimental to your mental health. Suppressing emotions is like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. Eventually, it will pop up with even greater force. Instead, it's about regulating emotions, channeling them in a constructive way. Think of it like learning to ride a wave. You don't try to stop the wave, but you learn to control your board and navigate the water. Similarly, you can learn to control your emotional responses and navigate the challenges of life with greater skill and resilience. This involves developing self-awareness, understanding your emotional triggers, and learning to manage your reactions to stressful situations. It also involves cultivating a sense of inner calm and objectivity, a state of mind that allows you to see things clearly and make rational decisions, even under pressure. Cultivating strategic emotional detachment is a process, not a destination. It requires consistent effort, practice, and self-reflection. It's about developing the mental discipline to observe your emotions without judgment, to acknowledge their presence without letting them control your actions. It's about creating a space between stimulus and response, a moment of pause where you can assess the situation objectively and choose your reaction deliberately. This space is where true power lies. It's about building mental resilience, the ability to bounce back from setbacks and challenges, to maintain your composure in the face of adversity. It's about developing a strategic mindset, the ability to think clearly, make rational decisions, and achieve your goals, regardless of the emotional obstacles you may encounter along the way. One practical technique is mindfulness meditation. Regularly practicing mindfulness can help you become more aware of your thoughts and feelings, allowing you to observe them without judgment. This increased awareness can help you identify your emotional triggers and develop strategies for managing your reactions. Another technique is cognitive reframing, which involves challenging negative thoughts and replacing them with more positive or realistic ones. This can help you change your perspective on stressful situations and reduce the intensity of your emotional responses. Visualization is another powerful tool. By mentally rehearsing stressful situations and practicing your desired reactions, you can prepare yourself to respond more effectively in real life. These techniques, when practiced consistently, can help you cultivate strategic emotional detachment and develop the mental fortitude to overcome any challenge. Furthermore, consider the power of journaling. Regularly writing down your thoughts and feelings can help you process your emotions and gain a deeper understanding of your own emotional patterns. It allows you to externalize your internal experience, creating a distance that allows for objective analysis. By reviewing your journal entries over time, you can identify recurring themes, triggers, and reactions, which can inform your strategies for managing your emotions more effectively. This process of self-reflection is essential for developing self-awareness and cultivating strategic emotional detachment. It's about understanding your own vulnerabilities and strengths, and developing strategies for leveraging your strengths to overcome your vulnerabilities. Strategic emotional detachment is not about becoming emotionally numb. It's about becoming emotionally intelligent. It's about understanding your emotions, managing your reactions, and using your emotions to inform your decisions, not dictate them. It's about developing a sense of inner mastery, the ability to control your thoughts, feelings, and actions, regardless of the external circumstances. This is a skill that can be learned and honed over time, and it is a skill that is well worth mastering. The rewards of strategic emotional detachment are significant: increased clarity, improved decision-making, greater resilience, and a greater sense of control over your own life. In the long run, it leads to a more fulfilling and successful existence.